Hey, what's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our Benny's Bat section for Monday, June 20th. It's only a small 9-game slate we have tonight, but we do have some really good pitching on the mound. We also have a couple gas cans that we can stack some bats up against. So let's get right into it. What we like to do here in the Benny's Bat section is we take a look at every game, look at every pitcher that's on the mound, figure out what that pitcher's weakness is, and then try to figure out which bats on the other team profile to do the best against them. So let's start with the San Francisco against Pittsburgh game. One of the better pitchers on the mound today, Madison Bumgarner, going for San Francisco. You know, left-handed bats are hitting under 200 against him, so we're not looking at any of the lefties here. You know, righties are only hitting about 220, so while they have the higher average, it's not really like they're, knocking him around. It only gives up about a home run every 9 innings to right-handed bats. It's even worse than that, the left-handed bats. So, like I said, not a lot of guys that you really want to target here. If you are going to target some of the Pittsburgh bats, Josh Harrison has been all right against Bumgarner in his career, 4 for 7 with a home run for him. Guys like Jung Ho Kang and, Andrew McCutchen, Sterling Marte, all these guys do hit left-handed pitching well. But, Bumgarner is one of the best left-handed pitchers we have in the league. So, like I said, small sample size for all these guys. None of them have really hit him well outside of Harrison. And Bumgarner is a really good pitcher. So, maybe if you don't want to use Bumgarner because you think this Pittsburgh offense does have some pop against lefties, which they do, I can understand that, but I really can't see using any of these bats here today. On the other side of the game, we got Jeff Locke pitching, the lefty. Right-handed bats hitting about 299 against him this year, 9 home runs in 55 innings, so about 1 every 6 innings or so. San Francisco's not really that great against left-handed pitching, though. You can look at a guy like Posey. I think he's in a really good spot. 371 WOBA, 186 ISO, probably the best right-handed bat they have against lefties. Outside of him, though, the other guys that hit lefties pretty well, if you're looking at numbers since the start of 2015, Brandon Belt and lefty-on-lefty matchup. Jared Parker also lefty-on-lefty matchup. It's not like Locke is lights out to lefties, so I think these guys could light him up, but it just kind of goes to show you there's not a lot of guys on San Francisco with good numbers, so I don't like Locke. I guess you can stack up against them if you wanted to, but I don't really see a lot of one-off guys that I have to have in my lineup here. Next game we'll look at, Chicago White Sox, Boston Red Sox. Stephen Wright, the knuckleballer on the mound for Boston. 2.22 ERA, 1.12 WHIP. Not a huge strikeout guy, but I think he's at about 7.5 to 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. It's tough for me here because Wright with the knuckleball, he's been great so far this year. He had a start earlier this year against the White Sox that he was really good. I think he only gave up like 3 or 4 hits. The only guy that really stands out to me is Jose Abreu, and we talked about this before. With a knuckleballer, I want to see guys that can hit a knuckleballer. So even less than, the ISOs and the WOBAs and the batting averages and all that good stuff, I want to see guys that have actually done well against knuckleball pitchers. Abreu's 5 of 12 against R.A. Dickey with 3 home runs. And he's 2 of 5 against Stephen Wright with a home run and a triple. So this is a guy that is 7 for 17 lifetime with 4 home runs and 6 extra base hits against, knuckleball pitchers. Those are some pretty good numbers. So if I'm looking at anybody on the White Sox today, probably Jose Abreu. He's the only guy that stands out. And he's actually been hitting the ball pretty well lately too. On the other side of this game, we got Miguel Gonzalez pitching for the White Sox. Left-handed bats hitting 280 against him with a home run about every 5 innings pitched. Right-handed bats have been good too. They actually have a higher fly ball rate, so you would think that they should have more home runs over the long haul. 2 guys that kind of stand out to me. You got David Ortiz, absolutely smashes right-handed pitching. 438 WOBA, 349 ISO score. Those are just amazing numbers. So Ortiz is somebody that, to me, against the righty is basically always in play. I like Hanley Ramirez as well here today. 3 of 7 lifetime with 2 home runs against Miguel Gonzalez, so those are some pretty good numbers. I think you can look at all these other guys that we talk about every day too. Mookie Betts, Dustin Pedroia, Xander Bogaerts on the top of that order. A guy like Jackie Bradley Jr., a left-handed bat that could round out a stack, a 5-man stack on DraftKings since you can't play Ortiz and Hanley together. I think all these guys are in play. I do think Boston puts up some runs here. Gonzalez, not a very good pitcher overall. He's been okay so far this year, but, his numbers this year are actually better than his lifetime numbers, and they're still not all that good. So definitely think they can knock around Gonzalez, and I think that they're expensive, as they always are, but, Boston could be the highest scoring team on the day. Next game, we'll talk about Colorado against Miami. Jorge De La Rosa on the mound. He's much better away from home. His batting average allowed is almost 200 points lower away from home. It's like 440 at home and then like 220 on the road. So he's actually been solid on the road. Both right and left-handed bats are okay. Right-handed bats probably better with him being a left-handed pitcher. Looking at Miami team, I mean, Marcell Ozuna, 430 WOBA, 227 ISO, has been killing left-handed pitching this year, so he's definitely in play. JT Realmuto, the right-handed bat, I like him against lefties depending on where he is in the order. Like when they were hitting him clean lead off against left-handed pitching, I loved him. I don't think we're going to see him up there today, but if he is hitting lead off, I definitely think he's somebody we want to use. And then the big question is, what do we do with Giancarlo Stanton? And in the last 3 games, he's looked a lot better. He's 6 of 12 over his last 3 games. He's finally starting to hit, but you're not getting him at $3,000 anymore. He's up to, I think, $4,000 today. He was like $4,700 yesterday. Last week we were getting him $2,800, $2,900, $3,000. So if you were waiting for that breakout, I think you missed it. And now it's just a matter of, you're getting a pretty solid hitter who's hitting well right now at $4,000, which is still cheaper than we see for Stanton normally. So I do think he's in a pretty decent spot here today. I think a lot of people are still afraid to use him. But again, you look at his last 3 games, it looks like he's starting to figure it out again, or, is starting to hit again at least. And that's really what we're looking for. On the other side of this game, we got Paul Clemens pitching, who Miami just called up from the minor leagues. They just purchased his contract. Has decent K stuff, about 7.9 Ks per 9 innings, I think. Left-handed bats hit him better. He is a right-handed pitcher. So guys like Cargo, 412 WOBA, 303 ISO. Blackman, 356 WOBA, 180 ISO. And then even Arenado, 386 WOBA, 308 ISO. Very good in righty-on-righty matchups. When a guy comes up from AAA, I'm always a little skeptical that he's going to be able to dominate major league hitters. So I think that some of these guys are going to be able to knock him around a little bit today. Next game, we can talk about Seattle at Detroit. Nathan Karn's on the mound for Seattle, and he's a guy that actually does have some strikeout abilities, so he has a little bit of upside if you're looking to use him as a pitcher. But right-handed bats have a higher average against them in 2016. They're hitting 295, which is not normal. Like, he normally doesn't give up a 290 average to right-handed bats, but this year he is, and that's really tough for him because he's going up against a Detroit team. Even with J.D. Martinez hurt, they still have a ton of really good right-handed bats that hit right-handed pitching well at the top of that lineup. We're talking guys like Ian Kinsler. We're talking guys like Miguel Cabrera. V-Mart is actually a switch hitter, so he'll be hitting from the left side against them, but he's always somebody who's dangerous. Justin Upton, even though he hasn't had a great year. Castellanos, and then you even got guys like, Moya, who's been playing for JD and has been knocking the ball around as well. So, this is a really tough matchup here for Karns. I don't think I'd use him. I do think some of these bats are a little bit interesting. I mean, Miguel Cabrera, probably my favorite one. Moya, if he's still very cheap, could be a way to help you fit in one of these stud pitchers, the, Bumgarner, Kershaw, or Strasburg, who we'll talk about a little bit later. So you may need some of those cheap guys. He could be somebody that you can look at. And remember, everybody in the middle of that order is kind of batting like one step higher right now with J.D. Martinez out. Martinez got hurt last week, so obviously he's no longer in play, but it kind of moves everybody else up. So, there's some other guys now that may be a little underpriced for the new role that they have. On the other side of this game, we got Mike Pelfrey pitching. Lefty's hitting 347 against him this year. Righty's hitting 295. He does have a low fly ball percentage, though. He doesn't give up a ton of fly balls, although I'm not going to say he doesn't give up a lot of home runs, because for the amount of fly balls he does give up, a lot of them tend to turn into home runs. So it's a little bit of a paradox there, but he is somebody that can give up a home run, although he doesn't give up a lot of fly balls, which, like I said, doesn't really make sense on its face, but that's the way that it is. The guys on Seattle, though, they haven't really hit them all that well in the limited at-bats they've had against them. I mean, you want to look at guys like Cano and Seager, the left-handed bats. They should be in great spots. But again, he's bad against righties, too. So even a guy like Nelson Cruz is somebody you can look at. Like I said, some of these guys do have some power, and, they would be guys that you want, but nobody really has great BVP that stands out. So I do think they knock Pelfrey around a little bit. I'm just not sure if it's going to be like the highest scoring game on the day, although I wouldn't be shocked if it was at the end of the day. Next game, talk about Tampa Bay at Cleveland. Josh Tomlin on the mound for Cleveland. A little bit of a reverse splits guy for him the last 3 years. Right-handed bats have a higher average, which is kind of tough because he's going up against a Tampa Bay team that's all right-handed. He does have a high fly ball rate. He can give up some home runs, but he's also able to strike guys out and, really make it tough on some of these batters. So Tampa Bay hasn't been great against right-handed pitching. They strike out a lot. I'm kind of on the fence. I think this game could go either way here. Like I said, Tomlin gives it up a little bit more to right-handed bats, but also Tampa Bay doesn't hit right-handed pitching well, so they don't have a lot of those guys that are good in righty-on-righty spots. They do have some home run upside, though, so I think this is one of those games where, he'll probably go like 6 or 7 innings, maybe give up 2 or 3 runs, and it'll basically be him getting tagged for a home run or maybe 2 home runs here or there. So hopefully there's nobody on base when that happens, and he can still give us a quality start, 6 or 7 strikeouts, 6 or 7 innings, 2 or 3 earned runs, 4 or 5 base runners, something like that, I think is definitely in the cards. If you want to use like a Longo or a Forsythe, guys that have a little bit of home run power, maybe a Souza or a Pierce, but I'm kind of staying away from all the Tampa bats here. On the other side of this game, we got Drew Smyly, high K guy. He hasn't been going deep into the games. He's been giving up a lot of walks, a lot of home runs lately. So, he's given up 12 home runs in his last 9 games. I think 4 of those games have been multiple home run games. So you may want to look at some of the guys that have a little bit of pop on the other side here. A guy like Napoli is probably in the best spot, 381 WOBA, 262 ISO, has killed left-handed pitching his entire career. Francisco Lindor hitting in front of him, 375, 177. Switch hitter, does well against left-handed pitching. You can look at like Yan Gomes at catcher, hits left-handed pitching pretty well. You got some other guys with some pop in that lineup, guys like Carlos Santana, maybe a Rajay Davis on top. I don't really love Kipnis and lefty-on-lefty matchups, so that's basically it. I do like this Cleveland Indians team. I mean, Smiley's a guy that can go 6 innings with 11 strikeouts and give up 6 runs in the process. So, I'm not really too scared of him. Yes, he could strike out a few of these guys, and he probably will strike out a few of these guys. He does have good strikeout stuff, but I also see 1 or 2 of these guys tagging him. I see him walking a couple guys. And again, we talk about it all the time. If you're walking a lot of guys and you're getting tagged for home runs, they wind up being 2 and 3 and, 4-run shots. And when you give up, that kind of a home run, it really hurts your chances to win a game. It also hurts your ERA, and it hurts your fantasy score overall. So, Smiley definitely not somebody on my list. I guess for GPP, I understand because he does have the strikeout upside. If this happens to be the game that he doesn't, give up a big hit, which lately he has been doing. Next game we talk about Baltimore against Texas. Kevin Gausman on the mound for Baltimore. Right-handed bats, higher average, higher fly ball percentage, more home runs against them. So guys like Adrian Beltre and, Jurickson Profar are probably in pretty good spots, depending on where Profar's hitting in the lineup. They're the 2 best bats righty on righty. Maybe an Ian Desmond as well if you want to stick with that righty theme. I also like some of the lefties, though. I mean, Shin-Soo Choo is back. He's leading off for them. Good left-handed bat, has always hit right-handed pitching well throughout his career. Used to be a home run and stolen base upside kind of guy. Haven't really seen that out of him yet, but like I said, he just came back from the DL. The guy I like a little bit more is Nomar Mazara. Still really cheap, very good against right-handed pitching. Hit a home run again the other day. Yesterday, hit a home run again. He's just such a solid young player. Like him a lot. Think he could be somebody that I'd look at against Gausman as well, especially if you're trying to fit in like the Kershaws and stuff. Like I said, he's pretty cheap. I think he's only like 3,300. So, that's very friendly for a guy that has home run upside and multiple hit upside. And, he's been batting 3rd in the order lately. So you're not going to find a lot of solid 3 hitters in the right splits matchup for them at that kind of a price. On the other side of this game, we got Derek Holland, the lefty, pitching for Texas. Right-handed bats have done much better against him. Much higher average, huge fly ball rate, more home runs. So that really points to a guy like Mark Trumbo for me. 350 WOBA, 269 ISO, huge power out of Trumbo. He's been beating up left-handed pitching for home runs all season long. Texas, it's hot down there, pretty good ballpark to hit home runs in. I think Trumbo's one of the outfielders I'm definitely going to be looking at today. I also like his teammate, Adam Jones, leading off, another guy that has hit left-handed pitching well throughout his entire career. You put these 2 guys up there at the top of the order against Holland, I think they're in a pretty good spot. Remember, the lineup's a little bit weaker. Machado is serving his suspension right now, so he won't be in there. I don't really love Chris Davis in lefty-on-lefty matchup, so I'm shying away from him. There are some guys a little further down in the order. Matt Wieters is somebody, had a big game yesterday. Jonathan Scope, another right-handed bat that can hit left-handed pitching. So there are a couple guys in this Baltimore team. If you're not a fan of Holland and you wanted to stack them up, it's a lot cheaper to stack them up now that you don't have the $5,400, Machado in the middle of that order right there. So, if there's a Joey Ricard up top or Scope is batting up in the 2 or the 3 hole, you can stack them up a little bit easier right now. So I wouldn't be opposed to doing that tonight with Baltimore. Next game we can look at St. Louis at Chicago. John Lackey on the mound. And John Lackey has been great this year. 266 ERA, 0.93 whip. I never thought this guy was this good, and I still don't really think he's that good. Left-handed bats have a higher average against them, high fly ball rate. Not a huge fly ball rate, but a little bit of an elevated one. Like I said, I've never really loved this guy. I don't think that what he's doing is something that's sustainable. I mean, we've seen Lackey for years. He's always been a solid pitcher, but like he's putting up just, absolutely eye-popping numbers right now. Like 0.93 whip, 266 ERA. I mean, that stuff is insane. So I'm looking at this team and saying to myself, I think he can be hit. Left-handed bats the way I want to do it. Carpenter, 405 WOBA, 262 ISO, leading off top of the order. They're on the road. He's going to get the max number of at-bats. I really like him. I know he's expensive a little bit. Some sites you got to pay up for him, but he's cheaper today than he has been in some of the days in recent past because of the matchup of Lackey, and I see no reason why Lackey's going to shut him down. I like the left-handed bats. Like I said, Brandon Moss is 4 of 14 lifetime against Lackey. Matt Adams only has one at-bat against him, but he's 1 for 1 with a big home run, a pinch hit home run that he hit off Lackey. So, I think Adams could be another guy that we can look at as well. So hopefully some of these left-handed bats make their way in the lineup. That would be the way I'd really want to attack them with Cardinals hitters. On the other side of the game, we got Jaime Garcia. He's a solid pitcher, but he's had a rough last couple outings. He's also kind of a reverse splits guy. Left-handed bats have always hit him better. So a guy like Anthony Rizzo is really standing out to me. Rizzo is very good in lefty-on-lefty situations. 372 WOBA, 201 ISO score. So he has hit left-handed pitching well since the start of 2015. Really like him in this spot. Don't hate Ben Zobrist. Zobrist hits lefties well, 390 WOBA, 177 ISO. He has killed left-handed pitching this year. So I think he's another guy we can look at. And then, you look at some of the other right-handed bats in that lineup. A guy like maybe a Javi Baez or, who else do they have in there? Chris Bryan, I forgot. Any of the right-handed bats that get in there. I know that Garcia is a reverse splits kind of guy, but right-handed power has been something else that he's had a little bit of struggles with throughout his career. So I think some of these guys that have some home run pop from the right side are other guys that we can use here. Next game I want to talk about, the LA Angels against the Houston Astros. You got Doug Fister on the mound. Normally you want to take left-handed bats against Fister, but there really aren't any left-handed bats on the Angels. I mean, Cole Calhoun, I think, is about the only one. Mike Trout is obviously in play, even in a righty-on-righty matchup. 412 WOBA, 285 ISO for him. I don't really like Fister, but there aren't a lot of guys that I think stand out as, really solid plays for cash games. If you want to stack up the Angels against Fister, I can see the merit in doing so. The Angels aren't the greatest offense that we have in the league, and they don't really kill right-handed pitching. But, again, Fister is a very bad pitcher, so I do think they could put up some runs. On the other side of the game, Jhoulys Chacin pitching. Left-handed bats have a higher average against him, but a pretty low fly ball rate. He does keep the ball in the park, which is kind of the saving grace for him. Right-handed bats are okay too, but nothing spectacular. So I don't really see guys that are jumping out at me. I mean, do you want to use the lefties like the, Colby Rasmus, the Valbuenas, the Jason Castros? They don't really excite me all that much. And then you look at the righties. I mean, Altuve, much better against lefties. Springer, much better against lefties. Correa is actually the best one in righty-on-righty spots, but it's not like he has a huge upside either. So, I think you can take bats against Chacin, but none of these guys are jumping out at me. So I'm not really going to reach for any of them in my cash games. I think there's spots that I feel much safer about using. And then even in tournaments, I don't see Houston putting up a huge number against Chacin today. This offense has kind of disappointed me, so I'm not really looking to roll them all out there. And then the last game, I mean, you can take bats if you want to, but you got Clayton Kershaw pitching for the Dodgers going up against Steven Strasburg pitching for Washington. Two of the better pitchers in the league on the mound. Kershaw, I guess you would use righties, so, guys like Zimmerman and Worth hit left-handed pitching real well, but it's Clayton Kershaw. You don't make money taking bats against Clayton Kershaw on a regular basis. And I'm not going to pretend that this is going to be the one day where that actually would work out for me. So, not really all that interested in it. On the other side, Strasburg, Strasburg has been very good this year. He gets tagged for the occasional home run. But, I mean, who's the big home run hitters that you have right now on this, on this Dodgers team? I mean, do you go with a guy like Corey Seager, 380 WOBA against right-handed pitching? So he's probably my favorite bat. I mean, Trace Thompson's been flashing a little bit of power lately. Jock Peterson's been flashing a little bit of power, but I don't really want to stack up or take a lot of exposure against Strasburg either. I think you got two very good pitchers on the mound here. I could see this ending in a, 2-1 or 3-1 kind of game. And, I really don't want any of the bats here. I think both of these pitchers are in play. Obviously, I like Kershaw. More than Strasburg. Strasburg is very expensive at 13K. Kershaw is even more expensive at 14K, but I think he's the better pitcher. So if I'm paying up that kind of money, I'm going for Kershaw. And, I know somebody's going to try to stack both of these guys up in the same game. And on DraftKings, I don't think it's a horrible idea. If they both go out and pitch well, you could get, a good return. But you're going to need a really big game out of both of these guys to pay off 14K and 13K kind of price tags. So, obviously Kershaw, anytime he steps on the mound, is somebody you got to consider and is in play. He can go 8 innings, strike out 10 plus guys, and only give up 1 run. And, nobody would even think it was a great start. They'd just be like, oh, it's Kershaw being Kershaw. But again, you really got to try to figure out how you're going to do it and try to find some cheap bats or a cheap SP2 if you're going to try to fit either one of these guys in your lineup. And for me, if I'm going to, go through all that hassle to try to fit one in my lineup, it's definitely going to be Kershaw. So, that's kind of the way I see it. And that wraps it up for today's slate. Thank you guys for joining us here at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.